We've talked a lot about maintenance and the need to not only take care of and restore sites, but maintain them afterward. Something else that we've talked about a lot is change, how these natural systems around us are changing constantly, how we're learning new information every day, every year. So last summer, we started down the path of creating a long-term management plan for all of these different restored sites, over 20 sites all the way around Muskegon Lake. And we were sitting around brainstorming, and we said, the reality is people don't use manuals anymore. We could put a bunch of time into writing a big, thick manual that would sit on somebody's bookshelf and never get looked at. And the trouble with writing these big, thick manuals is sometimes, the minute that you print them, they start to become out of date because you are constantly learning new information all the time. The natural world around us is changing all the time. So what we kind of brainstormed at the time is, well, what if instead of writing a long-term management plan that's a manual, what if we built a website? And the website would give us the opportunity to not only create something that's usable in the way that people in the year 2020 use information. People don't pull manuals off bookshelves, they Google it, right? But would also give us a chance to create something that's nimble, that can be easily be updated and adapted as things change and as we learn new information. And would also give us the opportunity to link to other great sources of information and real world information, that we could house all of that in one place. So this is admittedly still under construction. There are only about 4 people so far that have even seen this, but this is the first soft rollout of what's going to be the habitat management plan for Muskegon Lake. At the same time that this is being developed, the Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership is also revamping their website. So this habitat management plan is going to be a tab on the new, soon to be rolled out Muskegon Lake Watershed Partnership website. So this is our soft rollout, we're calling it. Again, admittedly, it's still under construction, but we're going to show you guys a little bit about what this plan is going to look like, some of the different components that are going to be involved with it. So if we can just kind of scroll down through this section a little bit, you start out with the main landing page, and it's going to kind of talk to you a little bit about some of the work that's been done, why it's important to have a management plan. I can keep scrolling down a little bit. A little bit about Muskegon Lake's wetlands, the fact that they're coastal wetlands, they're very dynamic systems, how they work. We can go ahead and just keep scrolling all the way down to the bottom. So I have some general information about Muskegon Lake and its coastal wetlands. And then if we scroll back up to the top, we'll say, so there's going to be all different offshoots of this page, and we'll start with, we'll say, best shoreline practices. So this is going to hint on a lot of the things that Julia was talking about, and actually we refer back to a lot of the information that click on that page right there. So we're going to have some information on best management practices for the shoreline. And a lot of this is actually going to link back to a lot of the information that the the Michigan Natural Shoreline Partnership has put together. So you recognize this graphic from some of the information that Julia had put together. And as we scroll down through here, we'll have some different recommendations and some different information. This will link back to, so Grand Valley State University, tying back to Janet's talk, actually has real-time water quality monitoring of Muskegon Lake. So we'll have some information linking back to that. We'll talk about some different things that can be done to help manage shoreline properties along Muskegon Lake. Just go ahead and keep scrolling down there. Linking back to resources like Tip of the Mitt Watershed Council's Rain Garden Design Manual and the Low Impact Development Manual for Michigan. And keep scrolling down through here. Talking about some different things that we can do to help stabilize shoreline and manage the shoreline best. Again, a lot of things that have been talked about so far this morning. Keep scrolling down. Keep scrolling down. Some of these graphics you'll see in Julia, yes, these will be cited. We just don't have some of the citations on here yet. Referring back to the Natural Shoreline Partnership. Go ahead and keep scrolling down, all the way down to the bottom. And you'll see at the very bottom here, we link to the The Michigan Natural Shoreline Partnership has put together a series of videos on best management practices for shorelines. So doing this, with a website, it gives us a chance to embed these videos, take people right to good, relevant, easy to understand information. If we scroll back up real quick, scroll back up to the top, and let's go to this section on invasive species control right here. So within this section, as we scroll down, we'll talk a little bit about invasive species, why they're a problem. The reality is that invasive species are one of the biggest threats to our shoreline habitats. So as we scroll down, we will have a link here that will take you to identification and treatment recommendations for the primary invasive species that we find specifically around in Muskegon Lake. So rather than give you a list of every invasive species you might find everywhere, these are the core 18 or 20 species that are commonly found around Muskegon Lake with specific identification and management practices. We'll talk about different techniques that you can use to manage shorelines for invasive species, and keep scrolling down. Different types of control methodology and techniques. Keep scrolling down. Mechanical, chemical, things like can pulling, things like that. And even talk about biological and hydrological techniques. If we scroll back up to the top again, if we click on restored sites, let's go there. In addition to that, we'll have a native plant library where we show pictures and descriptions of the common native plants found around Muskegon Lake. We'll have a common wildlife library where we have pictures and identification of the common wildlife found both in upland and aquatic areas all the way around Muskegon Lake. And on this section, what we're going to do is this will take you to ultimately a map of the different restored sites all the way around Muskegon Lake. As we scroll down, you'll find some different results and metrics that actually come from these quantitative assessments that we did of these sites. So last fall, we monitored all of these sites. So on this specific page, we talk about information in aggregate of what we found on these sites. And then one of the things that we did is we ran an analysis of the dominant species found at different water depths across all of these sites after 10 to 15 years of restoration. So what we found is at these different zones along the lakeshore, we looked at what species are actually most common and most dominant on these restored sites all the way around. And we think that information will be useful not only for understanding what these sites are like right now, but it also helped to inform future restoration by understanding what plants are actually being successful and what plants start to drop out of the community after 10 to 12 years of restoration. As we scroll back up here, then from this site, let's go ahead and click on the Restored Sites tab again. Right there at the very top. Where the laser is, let's click on Restored Sites again. And if we scroll down real quick, if you click on Amoco here, click on Amoco there. So each restored site is going to have its own page. And on each of these pages, as you scroll down, there will be information on the history of how that site was restored, pre-restoration photographs, some information talking about what was restored at the site. So here at Amoco, 2,000 linear feet of shoreline, 5 acres of open water wetland, construction costs, how many native plants were installed, how many different native species were installed. And then as you scroll down, it'll take you to the construction drawings, the site as-built, a fact sheet about each site. Keep scrolling down, we'll get to construction photos and post-restoration photos, so what some of these sites look like afterward. Then as we scroll down, we'll have a summary of the 2019 monitoring that will include some scientific statistics, So what we're trying to do here is talk to both the scientific community and these volunteer groups that will be managing these properties so that we have a broad array of information in how we present it. So we have the site summary statistics. We show what invasive species are currently present, and then to understand how to manage those invasive species, you'll be able to click a link here that'll take you back to that invasive species management website section. We have dominant native plant species on each site, and then from there you'll be able to click on a link that will take you to a native plant library and information on native planting and seeding around Muskegon Lake, which will include sources of native plant material, how to install native plant material, and how to actually identify some of these different native species that we found to become dominant around the lake. And then as we scroll all the way down to the bottom, each site will have specific management recommendations and a link to the site management plan. So most of these sites actually had individually developed site management plans, so we'll have all of that information available too. So it's actively under construction. We're very excited about it, and it's been cool to see how it's come together. We've been working on this for about the last couple of months, pretty hard. And we're hoping probably, I'd say within the next month or so, to be able to really pull it together and round it out. So we're going through kind of a simultaneous layout and editing process right now as we're still developing the content for this website. Well, some other sections that'll be on here, we'll have links for resources and networking. So we'll try to provide links to the best, most relevant and current information related to natural resource and shoreline management, best management practices. We'll have links to get involved. So this will tie back to some of the things that Kathy was discussing earlier about links back to these Facebook pages. And if you want to get involved with specific property or get involved in general, going back to something that Julia said earlier, not everyone can do everything, but everyone can do something. So to be able to tie all of that back together and house all of this information in a place that's very specific to Muskegon Lake and the Muskegon Lake environmental conditions and shorelines. So with that, we're just about at 11:30, and I think about ready for the panel discussion, right? Thank you.